Welcome into our conversation, one of my favorite Master Force coaches. And I can say that I know everybody's my favorite, but everybody knows that they're my favorite. What I know about Dr. Tammye is that she does the work. She does the work, she shares the work, she makes sure that everybody else does the work. And she's such an inspiration. Dr. Tammye, can you come in and introduce yourself and let everybody know and see you and they can tell why I love you?
Yes, yes. Can you see me okay?
Yes, hey.
Yes. Thank you so much, Musham Sue. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of Healing Waters for Men. I am always excited to be able to work with you, underneath you, on the side of you. I'm so grateful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This means a lot to me.
Yes.
I am Dr. Tammye. Dr. Tammye Matthews. I am a naturopathic doctor and I am a life coach. And many people ask, well, what does that mean, a naturopathic doctor? And so my focus is on getting to the root cause of a condition, of a disease, of a disorder. So I don't just look at the symptoms, I actually go a little bit deeper to find out the cause of the symptoms and look for a permanent um, treatment in order to heal and not to just mask the symptoms. So that's what a naturopathic doctor is. And I am a Master Force life coach.
Part of the first class.
Yes, first class of 2010, right?
Yeah, 10
2010 to
years. We
20.
have 10 years coming up in
Yeah,
October.
yeah, absolutely. And it actually is the 10th year anniversary of Restored by Tammye.
Yeah.
So this is an amazing 2020 for more reasons than one.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, how about that?
Yeah. And, and I'm excited to be able to speak to the men tonight about healing because that is an area of my practice that I think that I don't get to exercise as often. I do have some male clients, but not as many as I know that I should.
Hmm.
So the opportunity and the platform to be able to speak to hopefully millions of men is an amazing opportunity for me.
That's great. And one of the things and one of the reasons why we took this on is because we realized that men may not request assistance when they need help as much as women do. And not only that, we tend to look out and take care of each other just naturally. We're up under each other.
Yeah,
but
absolutely
but
true.
men don't do that. So yeah.
Yeah, you just reminded me of, I was in the pharmaceutical sales industry for 11 years.
Yeah.
And when I would go into the physician offices, when I would see men in there, it usually was because the wife set the appointment,
Mm.
wife made him come. The wife is sitting in the room with him, making sure that the doctor knows all the conditions that's happening with him and also understanding whatever the treatment protocol would be so that she would know then how to support her man, her husband, her
Yeah.
whomever. And
Yes.
so I thought that was such an interesting dynamic because I said, well, why is it, where did that come from where men don't go to the doctor or men are not really concerned about what's happening on the inside of them or keeping regular appointments and things like that. Where did that come from? Now, I come from a father who is very timely with physicals and dentist appointments. And so that's all I knew. But then when I was actually spending time in these offices, I saw that very few men, and the men that did come usually had their wives who have brought them and even speaking for them.
Mm, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping tonight we'll be able to have some discussions surrounding our
Yeah.
men.
Well,
Mhm.
that actually brings in, one of the first things, because we're talking about, you know, actually being able to observe what are the things that we see about men that we are concerned about. And so you just brought one up, that they don't see the value
Mhm.
in taking care of themselves and knowing that it's their responsibility to do that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I can already see that a lot of that could very well stem from, not being nurtured as a child, because inside of a conversation of working mothers, most of the time, most children were latchkey children.
Yeah.
So girls tended to emulate what mothers did, but boys just, kind of disappeared. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then I thought about, remember, so the Cosby Show.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Bill Cosby portrayed, a professional, he's a physician.
yes.
And even in those stories, Claire, the wife, was the one making sure that he was eating correctly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
making sure he wasn't sneaking the sweets and not too much bread. And
Mm-hmm.
so I even often think about, so for the baby boomers, where moms were at home, was it that the men knew and the
Was.
boys knew they were going to be taken care of?
And so
And
they found women to do that.
and so
Well,
they never had to think about it because they have women to do that for them.
Well, remember, Monday night when we were talking with Timothy and we
Hmm.
were talking about beyond the parent trap, one of the
Hmm.
things that he talked about and he spoke about was that sometimes women do too much for men
Hmm.
and enable them to stay inside of that conversation that, oh, my wife is going to do it. So I'll just act like I don't know what's going on and let her take care of it. And so if women, do that, why would they? Why would they bother?
And so then, if that, then because of course I'm looking at my young nephews,
Yes.
that my brother's sons, and so my mom is still making sure that my brother is taken care of, although he has his wife
Mm,
that makes sure he's taken care of. And so now we have this generation coming up that sees, well, the women will make sure that we're eating correctly, that we're healthy, that we're looking good, that we're taking, right? So then there's that pattern. So then,
what is the
right?
danger? I was just going to say, what is the danger of that? Speak to the danger of that. Yeah.
So I don't think that there's necessarily a danger with
Mm,
that. I think that as we are evolving and the world is changing and we're becoming more aware of purpose and just our place in this universe, I
mhm,
think uh that it's time for us to be overstanding of more of the spiritual aspects of why we're here versus what we've been conditioned to believe why we're here. And and even going further, when we talk about healing, you know getting away from the conditioning of how we should take care of ourselves or who should take care of us or who's responsible for us, but then that greater picture of everything I need is inside of me. So that awareness, that empowerment, and it's transcend. I think that the women are modeling it. I think that we are possibly a little bit ahead of the game in some ways. And then that hopefully the men are awakening to the fact that everything that they need is inside of them. And they don't have to depend and rely upon
mhm.
a woman. or anyone in order to be powerful.
Yeah, I love that, Dr. Tammye, because I actually do speak very powerfully in my family about sovereignty, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
I
self
learned that from you.
right, you know, self responsibility, your own authority, because even with healing, we've given our authority to somebody else. Someone else is going to heal me when in fact, like you're saying, everything is here, you know, and the
Mm-hmm.
communication about healing is in here too. You know, you have to be willing to listen. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the things that men need to begin to pay attention to, you know, and how can they begin to take responsibility for their own healing or care, just self-care even.
Yeah. So again, when we think about some of the root causes, when we think of the history, when we think of the conditioning, um, I believe in what I teach our men is to be to practice more of the spiritual exercises. And I
Mm,
guess that's sort of that yin and yang. You know, my whole conversation is about self-mastery.
yes.
So you've mastered the yang, the protector, the aggressor, the huntsman,
Provider.
the
Yeah.
provider.
Mm-hmm.
You're good at that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But that yin part, you know, that being vulnerable,
Mm.
that and which is why I love Timothy. Like I can sit and listen to him for days.
I know, right?
Uh, because to me he just embodies that masculine that balance of that masculine female energy, and
Mm-hmm.
he's able to um, get his point across in a way that you know that he's powerful, but
Mm-hmm.
yet he knows how to speak to that the yin part of the man and the woman in order to be able to, just even with his words, to begin to touch and stimulate, which I believe is healing, that balance.
Yes.
And so then that you're not afraid to be vulnerable. I mean, even as women, some women, you know, I've been guilty of that. And which is why I wear my citrine amethyst ring to balance my masculine female energy, because I felt I had to be yang, yang, yang in order to succeed and get ahead and be heard, you know, as a Black woman in America,
Yeah.
and which is not true. The yin is actually very powerful. That quiet voice.
Extremely powerful.
Yes,
I think we
yes.
can do a whole week on that one too.
Oh, oh my goodness. But yes, like that could be in December, winter solstice. Yeah.
Okay, you just brought it up, Dr. Tammy. You just put it on the table.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm,
And I believe that we're seeing more of this, but I think the encouragement for our men to begin to adopt more spiritual practices and being quiet and being okay with silence without a television, without music, um,
mm,
to be encouraged to hear that quiet voice, to be encouraged to live from the soul, and know that that's not a just a feminine thing, that actually is very powerful, and I think very sexy.
I totally agree. I I yeah, I just can't even imagine that I am just now at this age experiencing that type of partnership. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm.
yeah, it's very
It's
sexy.
very sexy, which was why I wanted us to go a
Yeah.
little bit deeper and get into the health, the sex, and the wellness, because we don't have enough conversations with our men about even the purpose of sex and how health and sex all come together, and
Health,
how
sex, and well-being are a continuum. They're on the same line. You know, one
yes,
off. they're all off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because when do they sit down and have those conversations?
Never.
Women, we have them, but
Yes.
when do men? I mean, they're not going to sit with each other and just have these conversations.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So
It,
I think adopting spiritual practices. I know, the Eastern culture, they practice all of the different transmutational sexual energy and in how to be intimate without touching. And, we hear about those type of things that some of our men in the Western world may not really be interested in because they haven't seen it, they haven't been around it. They may think that that is not masculine. I mean, I'm not really sure, but fear is what prevents our men from being their best,
mm,
from mastering themselves. It's the fear of being vulnerable,
mm-hmm.
the fear of what are the fears of
Rejection. There's
rejection,
yeah, the fear of abandonment.
abandonment.
The fear of humiliation. I mean, there's so many. One thing that I have noticed, because quite a few of my clients have been men, and I've noticed that they really are afraid to embrace that little boy within them
Yeah.
that has not been heard or felt or seen, and they, to even begin there, to just
Mm.
know that you're safe.
Yeah.
How do we teach
How
our
do we
men that
teach?
they're safe? Even in love, they a lot of times they don't feel safe. So that fear, all of those fears are right there inside of that conversation.
That's so true. And you just brought up for me, think about how then we raise our boys to be heroes,
Yes,
to
yes.
be to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're the saviors, who are we teaching them is going to save them?
Who's gonna save them? Terrence
Mm,
Real. I always talk about him, and that's exactly one of the things that he talks about.
mm.
That grandiose image that men have to have. They have to carry. I got it. I'm strong. And that's all they're doing. And then when do they get to cry? When do they get to
Hmm.
let it go?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I know that there's so much in that, but that's part of what the healing is about. My my son was like, my you know men aren't interested in healing. I like,
Right.
I
They
can
have pain and they want to get rid of it. That's as far as we got.
that, that's it. Dr. Tammy, I said I can hear you. I can hear that. And at the same time, it doesn't mean that we should not offer something to support wherever they are. Maybe they won't sign up for this webinar, but they can listen to the replay whenever they get ready, and maybe
Hmm.
something will trigger them to do work to support themselves, because there are a lot of sleeping giants out there, Dr. Tammy.
Yes, it really is. Really is.
You
It
know,
really is. Yeah, absolutely.
So now tell us, what do we need to do? What do we do? What is the path to healing?
Well, I found some interesting information that I wanted to point out, Ms. Shamsu.
Okay,
And I'm not even sure if you're aware of this, but
probably not.
I actually did a little research on some of the top areas that we're losing our men,
Okay.
or that our men are suffering. And
Yeah.
I thought if I kind of paint the picture around that,
Yes.
then maybe, if someone that's watching this sees themselves in some of these conditions, maybe some of the tools that we talk about may make a little bit more sense, or they may then know how to apply them.
Yeah. Very cool.
Now, what I found was like the number one cause of death for our men, it depended upon the ages. So, normally I'm like, because I'm speaking to, 40 to 80-year-old men, I'm like, heart disease is killing, our men and our women, right? Women are number one, whatever, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But what I found interesting was for the ages of 1 to 19, it was unintentional injuries.
Mm.
20 to 24, unintentional injuries. And then 45 to 64, you talked about cancer, 85 and up is heart disease. So I said unintentional injuries. So we know there's no such thing as coincidence.
No.
So that's sort of getting into that mental part, I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's important to know the tools.
Yeah, because
Unintentional.
immediately, MEPS shows up, right?
Uh-huh.
The life quadrant. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Life quadrant.
Mm-hmm.
The second for our 1 to 19-year-old is homicide. Of course, that's not a surprise, but it's bad. But the 20 to 44-year-olds is suicide.
Mm.
And then when we get to 45 to 64-year-olds, we're looking at heart disease. Okay. And then the third top, again, 1 to 19-year-olds is actually suicide. And then the 20 to 44-year-olds is actually homicide.
Wow. So it's
Yeah. So, yeah. So when we look at the top three things that are taking our men out, it's mental. It's the spiritual, it's the mental, and it's affecting and impacting the physical health in one way or the other. So
mm-hmm.
whether they're killing someone else or they're killing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
as far as our young people. And then unassisted suicide is what I call it when you're eating foods that you know are not causing you to feel well, that
Yes.
are preventing you from living your best life,
Yes.
keeping you from having great sex,
Mm-hmm.
keeping you from even wanting to have sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the food and the lack of care for your temple that houses your soul.
I was just listening to a podcast a couple of days ago, and it was heartbreaking. I'm looking at how to break down the information that they had in there, specific about how the social engineering that's going on in our society has targeted our food as African Americans. Our food is targeted to cause us disease.
Yes.
Okay, so it's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be more intentional about high quality nutrition. That has to become our biggest focus.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because even with our ancestors,
yeah.
they were given the
The
remains of
slops.
what,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it's nothing new today,
Nope.
unfortunately, but we're still conditioned to, in that we deserve substandard quality food.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still carrying that in our DNA. We're still carrying that in our souls. And then we're teaching our children this.
Yes, yes.
So it's not new. It's just that the way that they're doing it today is new.
Yeah,
That
and
attack
it's highly effective now, right? Because now you have
uh-huh,
commercials, you have everything like
uh-huh,
directing your attention to
yeah,
eat this, and then
uh-huh,
you think that, oh, I need to spoil myself and have what I want, and you're actually destroying yourself, not
destroying
spoiling
yourself.
yourself.
Because heart disease wasn't even in the medical dictionary 50 years ago. So
Wow,
our ancestors weren't dying of that.
wow,
They weren't dying of cancer, not at the rate that we are now.
yes,
And the number one cause of that, actually, Muslim Su, the only thing that has really expanded and in which they're linking to causing these diseases is the animal products.
Yeah.
Animal products and the animal byproducts.
Yeah.
And if you think about with some of our men, what do they want a good steak, that's masculine, you get a steak and you get potatoes and and not all. I mean, the men that I'm around are pretty health conscious, but that's how our men are growing up. Hey, fried chicken.
Yeah.
I'm a man.
Mm-hmm.
Carbs, alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
In the 80s, when they were introducing crack to our neighborhoods, drugs,
Mm-hmm.
So unassisted suicide, assisted suicide, homicide, it has to stop. But the only way that we cannot carry it on to our future generations is if we take the time to heal first.
Mm-hmm.
To stop, and as men are saying, hey, this stops here. I am not going to teach this to my future generations. I'm going to teach them the truth about how to be balanced and whole, about purpose, about power, about healing. And it's from a mental perspective, a physical, a spiritual, emotional, all those factors play a role.
Dr. Tammye, as you were talking and you mentioned the meat products, mm-hmm. I couldn't help but think of how now the target has been on plant-based meats.
Yeah.
And that it's not good. That whole GMO processed meats. I was just sharing with Shalonda the other day. I said I really make my own meat out of oats, mushrooms, sometimes wheat gluten. I try not to use too much of that, but
chickpeas, black beans,
and yeah, making whatever, tacos, burgers, meatloaf, and it's the conditioning that we have, and we don't even realize that you can change and I literally remember doing this for myself, changing what I ate because my family was dying and living through obesity.
Come on.
And I was like, I do not want that for myself. And one of the reasons that I breastfed my children is because research showed that if you breastfeed your children, they will not develop fat pockets. They will not develop fat pockets. Now, as my kids got older and they were thin, they were mad at me. But now they're over 30 and 40.
And they're still thin, and they're like,
yeah, and they can work out. They can work out and be in shape in a week. The most they do with is a little flab and a little pot belly.
Yeah.
But breastfeeding, I mean, who would have thought that?
Who would have thought that?
But your body, and then you don't give solid food until after 7 months.
That's right.
So after 7, and then the body has no memory of fat pockets, right? So part of the work, and this is why we do as women provide the healing waters. We, as much as we may not want to have to be as responsible, we are the foundation of health and healing in our families.
We are. We absolutely are. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think about even how men and women are made up when you brought up obesity.
Yeah.
Because men have naturally more muscle mass than women, obesity looks different. I mean, they may have, the belly, but men aren't as self-conscious as we are as women. They're not going to have the hips and they're not going to have all that of what we have. But the misconception is that because they do have, in some cases, the broad shoulders or more muscle mass, that they can sort of hide obesity in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. And unfortunately, obesity, regardless of if you can put on a shirt and nobody can tell you have a stomach, is preventing you from living your best life and is one of the risk factors for erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when the BMI is over 29, then you go from being overweight to obese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we look at, how do we started, what if I was breastfed, so I don't know what happened with me, because my body certainly remembered the fat pockets. But
You know what? But you're probably a kapha. You're a kapha body type, because I was breastfed too, and I'm a kapha body type. And all I
okay.
have to do is look at a cupcake. I don't even have to eat it, and all of a sudden,
Somebody's like, yeah, I remember
hey,
you.
cupcake, and you just go right someplace, right?
Right here.
So I have to have the discipline to be like, okay, I don't do cupcakes. No, thank
Yeah. Yes. So I look at, my family's four girls and one boy.
you.
My
Hmm.
brother is second to youngest. All the girls, have, we have the bodies and we have the fullness and all of
The
that.
curves, baby, the curves.
The curves, different
Voluptuous.
body types, but yeah, we have that.
Hmm.
But my brother is slender. We come from the same family. We learn how to eat the same way. And what is it? Okay, well, he's a man. He has more muscles, and
Hmm.
you have more muscle, you can burn more efficiently. But then obesity would look different on him should he gain that weight than what it would look like on us.
Yeah.
And so sometimes men are disillusioned in that, oh, well, I look good. I'm still pulling women, because women, we're so loving and forgiving and so
Well,
compassionate.
a
And
good
so
dinner.
a good dinner, and, it's an illusion.
It's an illusion.
Uh, you may still be pulling. However, you may not be functioning optimally
Mm.
because you're carrying too much weight, or your circulation is not as good as it should be because you're not drinking enough water,
Hmm.
you're not eating enough fresh live foods, and
Yes.
you're not cleansing and detoxing your body regularly.
Yeah. I had four people last week in my outer circle, not my inner circle, but my outer circle. Four people had mild strokes last week under the age of 50.
Wow.
Under the
Wow.
age of 50. Four.
And that is the brain, right? There's an attack on the brain, and there's blockage in the vessels,
Hmm.
and eventually that blockage gets to be where the blood can't flow anymore.
And then I always go to the metaphysical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sharing because, again, that's where the responsibility comes in, because people
Mm-hmm.
think, oh, let me do the physical side. So you can get the doctor to do the physical side, but like you were saying earlier, if you don't get to the root cause,
Mm.
you can take all the medication you want, but
Mm.
you haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
And the metaphysical side, according to Dr. Louise Hay, is I would rather die than change. That's what
Wow.
stroke says. I would rather die than
Mm-hmm.
change.
Yeah.
And so when I'm talking to people, and they're like, wow, yeah, I'm pretty stubborn. Well, it doesn't serve you. I
Doesn't
mean,
serve you.
granted, many of us needed to be stubborn
Mm.
as we were growing up, because that
Mm-hmm.
saved our life. That's what
Mm-hmm.
got us here. That
Yeah.
gave us persistence,
Mm-hmm.
determination, drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't serve us anymore.
And that's why I call it unassisted suicide.
Unassisted suicide.
I would rather die than change.
I would rather die. Then change. Hmm.
And as you always tell us, there's no judgment.
No judgment at all, because that's a path. And
That's
thing
a
is, we
path.
know that death is the final, and we know that they'll come right back.
Come on. That's it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then they may make a different choice. They may make the same choice.
But they have plenty of lifetimes to find whatever it is that's going to get them on the right path for them.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And so my thing is, as long as you are aware of your choices, then I'm good with whatever you choose. But as a teacher, as a coach, as a life coach, I want to make sure that you are at least aware of what you are choosing.
Very good. Hmm.
And then there's no judgment. I'm not here to choose for you. I'm not here to judge you. I am here to make sure that you are aware of that you do have choices.
Yeah. So you mentioned, Dr. Tammye, some
Mhm,
of the things such as the detoxing, and I know you've been doing that with people now for 10 years.
mhm.
What are some of the ways? Because I know that that's probably, and I tell people this, when you're talking about releasing weight, one of the first things you have to do is detox, you know, or do an enema or get a colonic, something. You have to
Yeah,
clean your intestines in order to get
yeah,
the flow flowing.
yeah, absolutely. 70% of the immune system is found in the digestive system.
Wow.
So if you're clogged up, if you're clogged up, you are not allowing your immune system to fight for you, which is why during these times with the coronavirus, along with flu season coming, along with all the other things, it's so important to be able to eat a lot of plant-based fresh foods so your body is naturally flushing itself,
Mm-hmm.
keeping the immune system strong, not overworking the immune system, keeping plenty of fresh water at all times
Yes.
so that if you happen to come across the virus, the immune system can fight for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are holding on to toxic waste, and then now the body is sluggish, and when you're people, we know when we're toxic. You have bags under your eyes, your skin
Mm-hmm.
is breaking out, you're sneezing,
Itching,
you're
itching.
itching, yeah, you're
Your butt itching.
constipated.
Your
And
butt.
yeah, exactly. Constipated,
Yeah.
your urine is foul. I mean, we know when our bodies are off, our pH is off. We know that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if we don't stop and say, okay, you know what, detoxing, and I think this is where you were going with me with this. I need to take a day where I just drink plenty of fresh water, fresh juices, eat plenty of salads, and just sweep out my colon.
Mm-hmm.
Or take a weekend. Oh, let me get some Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar and water and flush my system out and do a water cleanse or something.
Mm-hmm.
Let me have a meatless Monday and not have any animal product on this day and allow my digestive system to kind of get, build itself up a little bit. Those are examples of detoxing. There are extremes. When I did the 100-day juice fast,
I
that was an
remember that.
extreme.
Ooh, I remember that.
That whew, that was one of, other than having a child, that probably was second to having a child. The
Wow.
hardest thing I had to do, other than carry a child and have a child for 9 months. So how you all do it more than one time in life, Usha Sue, I don't
Well, I don't do
know.
it so much now, but I probably will. I probably will before the winter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So and I was speaking of, these are my grandbabies calling me. My 7-year-old got a cell phone for her birthday.
Oh, ooh.
So she calls her T mommy and quite regularly. I don't even know how to turn my iPad off. But anyway, but just keep it in mind because intention is everything.
Yeah.
Intention is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So making a decision, listening to your body, being aware that you have a detox. Sometimes we are so consumed with life. We
Mm-hmm.
have jobs that, again, with our men providers, right? They
Mm-hmm.
have jobs, especially those that are essential workers right now. They're hustling. You know,
Yes.
doctors, nurses,
Man.
police officers,
Yes.
firemen,
Yes.
they're EMTs, they first responders, they are hustling right now.
Hustling.
So to say, hey, you know, did you notice that you have dark circles? Or for them to even notice that they're constipated, to have time to even know that is very challenging,
Mm.
which goes back to why we need to um, emphasize to our men the importance of having a spiritual practice
Yes.
of agility, of
Yeah.
being agile in order to be able to balance their health and their wellness so
Yeah.
that they can get out there and be heroes if that's what they want to be. Again,
Mhm.
not judging them. If you want to be a hero, be a happy hero.
And be one for yourself
And
first.
be one for yourself.
It's crazy
Mm,
to be a martyr and allow
mm,
yourself to die, making
mm.
sure that everyone else has a good life. You matter too.
You matter too.
You know,
Mm,
and that's wonderful what you said. One ritual that I have had in place probably for I want to say probably at least the last 30 years is that with the solstice and with the equinox, I will fast. Now,
yeah.
sometimes I'm more extreme than others. Some, even if I do a day,
Mm-hmm.
even if I do, sometimes I do intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have one meal and then, for the rest of that day, I'm drinking lemon water.
Yeah,
That's another way that I do it. But it depends
absolutely.
because sometimes when I'm traveling, it's not possible always to do, a 10-day cleanse.
Exactly.
But I'm triggered at the solstice. Oh, I need to be fasting. I'm
Absolutely.
triggered at the equinox. Oh, I need to be fasting. And this
Absolutely.
is what keeps dis-ease. And, I don't get sick. I don't get colds. I don't get flus. I
Absolutely.
don't get anything, and
Absolutely.
I'm over 60 and most people still asking me for my ID.
Yes. Okay. I
So,
told you, Dickie. I was.
no, I'm over 60. Right.
Mm.
I'm
So
46, by the way.
get off of here.
What did you say?
I said I'm 46.
Because I told you I had to look twice. Like, who am I talking to here? Dickie, you look like you 30.
Trying to be like Moot when I get her age.
Okay.
Her
For
skin be
real.
popping. And, okay, I'm gonna be quiet.
Me too, honey, Vicky. Yes.
But that's inside of, transforming the conversation because I wasn't like that when I was younger. I wasn't doing those things that you're talking about to make sure that I had lived. I literally had to turn off a switch that was causing me to self-destruct.
Yeah.
I literally felt like there was something programmed and I don't even know where it came from. That's I'm gonna have to go back and explore that and write about that because
That's good.
yeah, but it was like there was a program to self-destruct. And I mean to the point where I was doing drugs, I was doing cocaine, PCP, not to the extreme of being addicted to any of it, but party. I was being the social, you know,
Yeah.
and my children and having children at a young age, that's what saved my life. I had my first child at 20, and I know that if I wouldn't have had my children, I would probably be dead because, man, I was on the
Mm.
scene.
Yeah.
you know?
When you talked about that switch, that reminded me of when I worked in Chicago public schools and
Mm,
talking with our young men. And there was that switch. They
yes.
didn't know how to turn off or
Ah,
turn on,
mm-hmm.
however way you looked at it. And literally they said, well, I don't expect to live past 21 anyway. So how do you plan? How do you visualize? How do you, when you don't even expect to live?
Yeah, yeah,
That switch.
yeah.
Yeah, you need to write about that more. That's good.
Yeah, because that inside of the conversation, and now we realize so much about how music in this era that
Mm,
our children, we have to clean up that music. We have to clean it up because it's a program and all the
mhm,
programs that are coming at that. But
mhm.
I do realize that, even the whole Black Lives Matter thing is not the affirmation, because
Mm.
we are beyond black.
Yeah, absolutely.
We, because it's like, yeah, you're not limiting me to that space.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But there is something about the value of who these young master geniuses are. And I do remember that I didn't think I would live past 30, but all of my first cousins died young. So I had no example of living past 30.
Mm.
So yeah, and that usually young people that come from traumatic backgrounds and feel unloved,
Mhm.
and unwanted. And I keep wanting to say, and you're wanted because you're here. The universe wants you here. Stop looking at people. Stop looking at your parents. They were the portal to get
Yeah.
you here.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
the portal, but you're wanted. And there's something specific that you're here to teach us and show us that only you can do. And
Yeah.
that's how do we get that to them?
Yeah.
So that they can stop with the unintended suicides,
Hmm.
or what did you call it?
Unassisted suicide.
Unassisted suicides.
Hmm. And I wanted to have some conversation even around their sexual development,
Oh,
because I think it plays a role in the conversation. And I
mm-hmm.
know that you've seen this and you've heard this, but um, how our men are even introduced to sex, to what it is, to purpose of it. And because I mean, I know that you are aware of this, but sex is a creation activity. And our masters, our young masters, if they're not introduced to it in a way of them understanding, overstanding why we have sex, right? Um, that I think feeds into some of the arrested development, undevelopment,
Mm,
um, their health overall not being optimal. So that's that mental, that's that spiritual, that's
yeah,
that physical.
yeah.
And that comes to mind because I have had a lot of male clients whose introduction to sex was molestation.
Yes, yes.
So we don't talk about our men.
Mm-hmm.
We always talk about our girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if, one is happening more than the other, but our boys are silent.
Yeah.
So then now you have them growing up with some resentment in regards to women, maybe, which can, because that's that mental piece, can feed into the I'm not valuable, I'm only good for this, or I mean, it's just a perpetual thing that can take you down that road of I have no power, I have no value, it was taken from me, or I was never told how to use it, I was never told I had it, or all leading to self-destruction, unintentional injuries as a cause of death, suicide, homicide as the top in our 19 to 44-year-olds. What?
Yeah. That is very powerful, because I too have had a lot of male clients that were uh, sexually molested, and even to the point that they never developed a sense of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And as they got older, they stuck to whatever they knew. They never studied, explored. And this is why, what we're always saying to people: be a mentor, get a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
inside of those intimate conversations, you get to support another person's development. I know with my sons,
Yeah.
And my daughter says, stop saying that. But I did have conversations about the power of celibacy. Not
Yeah.
saying that you had to. I'm not saying
Yeah.
you had to,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that in order for you to know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
celibacy gives you an opportunity to gain inner strength
Mm-hmm.
before you're externally expressing yourself.
Yeah.
Because once you get that little piece of pleasure, it too can become an addiction, and then it becomes something that you use as rage as well. Because
Yeah.
if somebody did it to you, you usually go and do it to somebody else in the way that somebody did it to you. So, I don't know, maybe we need to do a complete program on what are the topics for mentoring young men, but
Yeah.
because men, I don't think other men are talking to young men about celibacy.
No.
I don't know,
No.
but
I don't think that conversations happen. I like Vicky said, yes, it makes them closed off and looking to reach a climax without pleasure because they were taught that ejaculation is the climax.
and it's not. It's like if you learn to ejaculate, I mean, if you learn how to, first
Yeah.
of all, the nutrients that
Yeah.
you ejaculate are the same nutrients that nurture your pineal gland.
Mm.
So if you're ejaculating a lot, you're literally calcifying your pineal gland, and it's already enough stuff: fluoride, the water you drink, the food
Yeah.
you eat, those fast foods. Your pineal gland is calcified. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're now ejaculating, there's no nutrition going to, your third eye.
Absolutely.
So how do we teach young men, there's a button, okay, but but
Yeah,
you
what's
don't have to ejaculate.
right?
There's there's a button right at the perineum,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, don't touch yourself.
I know, right?
I saw a 10, he's talking the on and off switch.
Yes. And you make that energy go back up through your
Mm-hmm.
chakras, back up
Mm-hmm.
through, your spine, and go back into your
Yeah.
third eye. And the power, the real hero is in that ability to control yourself.
Yeah.
That level of self mastery is
Yeah.
what's going to, allow men to be able to levitate when they get ready to go into that spiritual essence of who they are.
But then, how then do we speak to those men who, or our young men, or our older men that think power has to do with money?
Yeah, that's a God too. Money is a God.
That's what all the music is preaching. That's
That's
what
what all the music is. And money is so fake. It's
it's an illusion.
it's
But to them, that I don't want to levitate, Musha Sue.
I
I
know.
want to live in the house like the master and them, and have the women like master and them, and I want that conditioning.
Yeah, I want all the hoes in the cars.
And you see, you got them, and you're still not happy. And
you
so,
you still not happy. See, that goes back to what it was said every night this week that we
mm-hmm,
are spiritual beings, and
mm-hmm,
we've been conditioned to think that we are human beings.
yes,
But we
mm-hmm,
are spiritual beings. So every time we go over there and think that all of the material things in the world is what's going to make us happy,
uh-huh,
that's where we lose. And that's why we're losing so many of our young men, because they too have gotten, as soon as they get to an age where they think, I need some money, somebody can say, hey man, here's $5,000, go shoot somebody. And they'll be like, man, $5,000. Now that ain't even no money.
I know. And then, so when I think about, my all-time favorite singer, Michael Jackson and Luther Vandross not living to be 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Money, power, fame, and and they weren't happy.
And they weren't happy.
And so
And
we
they
have
didn't
another,
even feel love.
they didn't feel love.
Mm-mm.
And so we have plenty of examples of how that's not it.
That's not.
But our young men, how do we get them? Well, our older men too probably, but how then do we get them to open to be able to become aware so that we can teach them
Mm-hmm.
the importance of healing, and that the illusions that exist, they are just that, so they can then go internal and begin to adopt some of the practices, so they can learn how to live from their soul
Yeah.
and tap into their, Asar said, their life force, not their sexual energy, but their life force.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how to utilize that, to even want to learn that.
To even want to learn that. You know, that one of the reasons that Master Force even exists is inside of that conversation, because Master Force was started with a group of young men in my living room, teaching them the metaphysical, spiritual, because it's like, no, we're not. Okay, I'm not telling this story here. But anyway, if you take something away, you have to replace it with an equal or higher value, right? So in teaching them, what it is that we wanted young people to be self-actualized at a younger age.
Yeah.
So then when we started creating the coaches, it was inside of a conversation. Suppose we had a Master Force coach at every dinner table. So when young people are talking and they're being challenged and they're, well, we got to bring back the dinner table, right? First.
Yeah.
But still, there's someone to redirect, because, when we do the whole master teacher thing, we're able to see that the worst trauma is actually a gift in it.
Yeah.
That might have been a trauma, but at the end of it, it gave me something. And we have to take them through those processes so that they can realize that life isn't over because something happens so bad that it hurt you. That's just an initiation. And see, that's kind of like what, the work that you're doing too is inside of teaching young men, because I remember you used to work at the schools, Dr. Tammye, sharing with did you have young men there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's who I work with mostly, with the young men.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were very open to learning. They were very open to how to escape the pain. Yeah, they wanted to get rid of the pain. And partly, I believe, because they were still in the environments that were causing the pain.
Yeah.
To teach them how to heal while still being in such painful environments was very challenging.
Very challenging.
So the trauma, they almost needed to be able to talk through what was happening, to process what was happening, but did not have the capacity to receive the tools needed in order to begin the healing. They weren't ready to heal because they were still,
they were still in the yuck.
Still losing loved ones every time they turned around.
Well, I have probably buried more people than I've had a chance to love, and started at a very, very young age. And so I do know that was part of my spiritual cultivation. Being able to not be traumatized or dramatized about death. And now there's a social engineering factor in our society that has weaponized death. death has been weaponized because it takes us off track, and so we're emotionally debilitated,
Mm.
die, instead of realizing that, and that's why we share the work of Robert Schwartz,
Mm.
because it's like people make choices in how they're coming into this life. And
Mm.
so every death is an agreement. Even no matter how violent it seems, it is an agreement.
Mm. Absolutely.
It's an
Absolutely.
agreement. But we're not taught that. We're taught to be victims inside.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of pouring libation to our ancestors so that we can sit and receive their messages, what do we
Mm.
end up doing? We cry.
Mm.
Have so much grief we can't even hear.
Absolutely true. And even birth is an agreement.
Birth is an agreement.
It's an agreement. And we're
Yeah,
not taught that.
right. It's an accident.
It's an
Oh,
accident.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm here by accident. No.
Mm-hmm.
So then, Dr. Tammye, what are some of the things that you can recommend
Mm-hmm.
that we talked about detoxing and you gave some examples of that,
Mm-hmm.
but specifically for young men? And I even want to speak as though we're speaking to other men or mentors who can take this information to young men, because we're not the ones who will be presenting unless they listen to this, but
Yeah.
you know because again, I'm looking at that. We need a mentor circle teaching men how to mentor young men, just so they get the information, because they're natural teachers anyway. I know every man in our circle is just, they have the elements to teach and give and empower young men. But what is some of the things that they need to know on the health and sex side and well-being side?
Well, I think first of all, what you said is key. The very first thing is that we are spiritual beings having human experiences. So we need to put things in perspective. Like
Mm-hmm.
there needs to be a paradigm shift somewhere there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, I think also that our, with our men, that more talk therapy is is needed. So that could be groups, but it's encouragement to in how to express themselves without feeling judged, and having a safe place to express themselves, to allow themselves to evolve and speak from their souls, because that may not be something that they even have an avenue to do, to speak from their soul.
Mm-hmm.
We speak from our head, we speak out of emotions, but to actually sit in a circle with other men, with mentors that are equipped to facilitate such a powerful circle, encouraging and teaching our young men how to speak from their souls.
Yeah.
Because once,
Yes. Yes.
Mhm, yeah, because once they know and learn how to tap into that, then they'll start learning how to live from their souls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think that empowerment comes from. I
Mm-hmm.
think it comes from the soulish realm, and that it needs to be developed. It needs to be encouraged. It needs to be exercised. And that's where that confidence comes in, and
Mm-hmm.
that boldness.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that confidence and boldness then will come out in words and expression, which in some cases, some people don't have to say anything. Just their presence in the room is healing, is powerful.
Yeah.
But then some people, when they speak,
Mm-hmm.
that's healing, that's powerful. However way that they want to express themselves, knowing that it's okay to do that. And knowing that, like you said, they're their own heroes. But just having a safe place to do it, to practice,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that they won't be judged. Because I think in that, then meditation will make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think learning about their history, where they come from, will make sense. I think silence, not always having to have those AirPods in their ears, and noise, that being comfortable in silence will make sense. MEPS will make sense.
Marv would make sense.
Marv will make sense. But without that, I think, they would have to rely upon situations. And unfortunately, or fortunately, when they are tapping into some of their deeper selves, it usually is found in a relationship, which could, depending on where the woman is, could be a little awkward.
Yeah.
Because it's never been practiced. And so then when you have a woman saying, talk to me, how do you feel? What do you want? It's uncomfortable. Because then you want me to be vulnerable, and I don't know how to be. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's going to look like. And it goes back to those fears we were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah. It was so wonderful listening to Timothy talk about his mentoring circle and some of the things that he did with young men. And he talked about, sometimes he would just sit with them, just sit with them. And all of a sudden that little tear would just come down because, sometimes people don't even feel like somebody want to be with them. Just in the space there, and like you said, the silence, like they can feel safe and not be judged. That's very powerful.
Yeah, because I don't think it takes much. Our men are very simple. It doesn't take much, but something as simple as allowing them to just sit in a space and be in their own thoughts, to be silent, that's huge. And to be okay and comfortable with silence is huge.
Yeah.
But
I told my sons, I said, listen, I want you to know that you guys have mama issues. No, we don't. I said, yes, you do. I want you to be clear that I don't necessarily know what those are, but the reason that I could say that is because, I was probably 50 years old before I really realized, I done did a lot of daddy work and I still got daddy issues.
Come on now, come on.
I was like, and I don't have a daddy. Like physically, I've never known a daddy. So it's not that something happened to me, but it was that daddy wasn't there. So doing the master teacher work, I was able to realize, in this incarnation, the agreement was made that I would focus my energy on having a relationship that I would have a relationship with the with God, with my higher power. That wasn't the agreement this time to have a physical father. And then years later, as I learned about being a queen of spade and a king of club, it makes more sense. Yeah. So even if we can get that kind of knowledge, right, to our young people so that they could begin to understand who they are. Yeah. You know what I mean, Dr. Tammye? Because, because it
That's
really,
good. That's good.
We think that because our parents didn't love us, but our parents are really doing the best that they can with what they know to do. I mean, every single one. So the first thing that any child can do is to forgive your parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, of course, forgiveness is the number one thing you can do in forgiving ourselves as well.
Yes.
That practice, gratitude, being grateful, that practice. And I think, and I love how you said, at 50, learning, gosh, I'm 50, and I think I've done a lot of work, because that's how I turned 50, and I still got a lot of work to do. But it's exciting,
Yes.
and to not have to feel the pressure of acting like, oh, I just got it all together. I've been a life coach for this many years. I done the work. No, this work is continual. And portraying that, displaying that, being vulnerable in front of our young men and saying, hey, you know, we're still on our journey. We're still doing the work.
Yeah.
But we want to stop right here and be able to share some things that we've learned, some experiences, some tools that can help you along the way. But we still have to go back and do our own personal work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this doesn't end. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's really an exciting thing. It's like unwrapping the package of who we are and discovering all of the different aspects of us, because we're so complex.
So complex. Yeah.
I didn't know that I was capable of, oh, wow, now I've just discovered something else about myself that I didn't know in 50 years, okay? You know? And I think if we model that for our young men, for our young women, if we model that, I think healing would be more sexy, more attractive. Because I don't know that it's considered that right now, because in some cases, healers are so out of the box, so unattainable for the perception of that.
The perception of that.
The perception of it.
Right.
But uh-oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Oh.
Like, don't bother me here. And he's still gonna keep going.
Oh my goodness. I'm looking at our size. I'm crying.
He said, what is Moot doing?
No, he says, good job. I would add that through a quality relationship, a man can get in contact with his divine femininity. It doesn't have to be his woman or intimate partner. Yeah. Absolutely. And I agree with you on that, but try to say that to a 25-year-old. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't sound sexy, Asar. It doesn't sound sexy or fun.
Well, and when you think about the way the music and television and all of that portrays, life, you're not happy until you with the woman you love, when actually you have to love yourself before you even have the woman you love. So you're going to go through a string of relationships until you know who you are.
Well, I just read an article. I wish I had pulled this up. They were saying that our men are choosing to be alone.
Yes.
Did you see that?
I did. Said because women are not women anymore. Right. Women are not women anymore.
Is this with our young people?
Yeah.
Tammye reading Asar's post. From the chat, Sam. Did I miss you? Hey, Sam. Now, isn't that something in the chat room? Am I in the wrong? Okay. But yes, and so that makes me fearful, because I don't know what that means. I don't know if and it should make me fearful, because what I'm hoping is that men are learning or starting to want to discover more of who they are and realize that they don't need a woman in order to define them. Okay, so they don't need an arm piece and some of the things that they've been taught. But I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Well, it goes back to
more. What does that mean?
If we're missing our nurturing from our mothers and we haven't learned how to nurture ourselves, we think that nurturing comes from someone else, right? So I have to get someone to nurture me. When it's like, no, take a bath. Go to King Spa, go get a massage, massage, exercise,
Yes.
eat right, learn
Yes.
to nurture
Yes.
yourself and love
Yeah.
yourself, clean your room. I mean, there's so many ways to nurture yourself that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with another person.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
But we look for that other person to provide something that we're not willing to give to ourselves.
Ourselves.
So no matter how much they give it to us, it's never going to be enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then when those sexual urges come and our young men have not learned uh, you know, the spiritual aspect of what sex really, the creative nature of sex and what its purpose is. And so
Yes.
then in some cases they feel these urges and then they feel like, oh, I need to either masturbate or I
Mm-hmm.
need to go find a woman to deposit into.
Mm.
Okay. And so then that vicious cycle. What is that? And then what does that do? That it's not healthy. And that goes back to that whole perpetual cycle of uh, of not learning how to go within, ejaculate,
Mm.
all of the things that will really actually empower us versus take away our power. Because every time a man ejaculates, he loses his life force.
Yeah, which is why some of
Power.
them don't live past a certain age because they have given up so much of their life force.
Mm-hmm.
And it started at a younger age when they had no idea what they were doing in the first place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, so when they start feeling those urges, instead of saying, "Oh, let me use that energy to be able to create. What's my next masterpiece? Let me write my book. Let me go and do this. Let me go to." It's, "Oh, let me get release. Let me release. Let me release." You know,
Yeah.
that's not healthy.
You know how I every now and then share Napoleon Hill's sex transmutation in our coaching
Mm-hmm.
group sometime
Yeah.
because sex transmutation and even in African proverbs they said the best thing a man can be is horny because
Mm-hmm.
it releases his creative energy, not ejaculation, but keeping
Absolutely.
that energy inside and now doing something. Go build something, create something, use your hands to
Mm-hmm.
extend that creative energy outside because sexual energy is a creative energy. That's why
Absolutely.
we can have children through intercourse. But you
Absolutely.
can also build empires.
Absolutely. And if you look at athletes,
Yeah,
professional athletes,
yeah,
their managers do not allow them to be around women around the time of their events
yes.
because they know and understand that they're going to lose their power if
Mm-hmm.
they are having sex before a game, before a fight, before anything that's challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is to build up. I love what Osira said.
Yeah.
Build up that life force.
Yes, absolutely.
Maintain that life force.
Yeah. Now, Vicky says, what would you tell? I'm sorry, Vicky. Maybe you didn't want me to say the name. What
Oh,
would you tell the woman who wants that type of relationship with her man and he is sharing emotionally with someone other than her? So I'm assuming the question is, what would you tell a woman who is in a relationship with a man who is not sharing, uh, who's not intimate with her, is not sharing his emotions with her, but instead with someone else? What would you tell that woman?
Yes, that's correct. I was just saying I see it a lot in the groups and when I see a lot of women getting
Mhm.
kind of I guess you say jealous for lack of a better term because they want their mate to share but their mate doesn't share with them. Their mate shares with someone else and they say that they feel kind of in the dark or left out of the thought process.
And what sharing what? Like what type of
Just
information?
just what he's going through, how he's feeling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of women feel like they're compartmentalized into just being that physical mate and not being an emotional
Yeah.
mate as well. And then Asar said he wants to chime in too, so I'm gonna click him in after you answer.
Oh, absolutely. I always say, and I'm gonna let you answer that one, Moo. I always
Well,
say,
you're so funny. My first thought was, well, we're doing relationships tomorrow night, but you know, of course, the mirror comes up, right?
yeah,
So there's a mirror.
absolutely.
There's a mirror right there.
Yep. Hmm.
Right, Miss Vicky. There's a mirror right there, and the mirror says that if you're telling us that your mate is talking to someone else,
Hmm.
then you have to look at yourself and say, who am I being that my mate cannot talk to me?
Hmm.
Because that's where your work is. You
Absolutely.
can't change. He's saving his own life. And that's what
Hmm.
people don't realize.
Hmm.
I don't even believe in the term cheating. I don't
Hmm.
even deal with that word
Hmm.
because people are about self preservation. And if
Self-preservation.
you're married to somebody and not providing for them, they're gonna go and get what they need.
That's
So
right.
you can, and that's an immature thing, right? But that's, you
Yeah.
have to decide in your relationship, what's the integrity of our relationship? If
Hmm.
your mate is asking you for something and you're too busy and you don't want to, okay. So he's going to go and find someone, or she's going to go and find someone to take care of that need. So the work to be done is, you know, who am I being that my mate can't talk to me?
Hmm. Hmm.
And begin to, because most of us, again, we aren't vulnerable
Hmm. That's
as women.
absolutely true.
We've been so strong all our lives
That's
that
right.
being vulnerable doesn't even seem right.
That's right.
So if you can't be vulnerable with your man, I promise you, he can't be vulnerable with you. Now, what would you add to that, Dr. Tammy?
So a couple of things went through my mind actually. Initially, I thought about that. This is the very, very basic fundamental response. But what I've seen is that boys, when they're young, they got mama and they got girlfriend. And then when you get older, you see some, not all, they want mama, which is wife, and girlfriend, which is, that one that they don't
Side
really
chick. Yeah,
a
I do
side
understand
chick,
chick.
the
Right.
mistress, whatever you want to call it. So
Mm.
that's a model that I see. But I do want to say that I personally, I've been married before, I'm single now, but I just don't believe, I don't believe that one person can have everything for one person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to allow ourselves as well as our significant others, our loved ones, whatever type of relationships that we're in, to be free to love who they're gonna love.
Yeah.
Um, just because, I mean, yeah, you probably wanna, because we've been conditioned to want to be Wonder Woman and Superwoman.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, my man ain't gonna have, he ain't gonna have need of nothing. I think that's unrealistic. That puts a lot of pressure on you. And if you look at, like, even with our girlfriends, I don't have one girlfriend that's just everything. I have one girlfriend I go to talk spiritual stuff with. I have one girlfriend that I want to go and travel with and party. I have so I feel like that with even our male relationships, it's the same thing. So some men are going to probably feel more comfortable with some other women, may have had longer relationships. That woman may remind them of a sister, as mama, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's too much pressure you putting on yourself to be all that. If you all have an agreement that you are going to create a relationship or a kingdom or whatever your agreement is, as long as you are both abiding by that agreement, you got to be free to allow each other to do and get what they need in order, like you said, which is
Mm-hmm.
to be whole, to be sane, to
Mm-hmm.
be healthy, to be
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And then you have to deal with your own stuff. If
Yeah.
you're jealous and insecure, that's your stuff.
That's
That
not,
doesn't have
yeah.
anything to do with the other person.
Right. Right.
So
That is
I'm
powerful.
sorry,
I
so I
like
wanted
that.
to add
No,
something.
that's great. And I love that model. I'm sorry, Miss Vicky. I love that model about the mother in the girlfriend about having, always having someone to talk to. I can't talk to you, but I can talk to you. Yeah, I can see that.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, as long as we've made an agreement and we're all in, because we can change our mind at any point.
Yes.
We don't and sorry, I know that you want to jump in here, so I'm gonna shut up. But we have to. Love is free. Love should be free, and we have to allow each other to evolve. And so maybe at the beginning point we had an agreement, but in 2 years, someone is feeling differently, or maybe the vision has shifted, or whatever. You got to allow people to grow and be free and walk in their purpose. And say nobody's perfect. So
Yeah.
the intention may have been this in the beginning, but then the journey changed. Now, if whether you're married or not married, or however way you look at that, you got to allow people to be who they are. You have to allow them to grow and evolve and be free and be healthy, because that's healthy. And trying to hold on to people because you're afraid to let them go, that's unhealthy.
Hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
I think one of the most important things you said was agreements. When we talk about relationships, they should be established inside of agreements. And
Mhm.
what the thing you project on your mate, when a woman says or a man who says their mate can't have conversations with others, they need to ask themselves what's behind that. If
Mm.
I believe whoever I'm in relationship with, I've learned that I should trust them as much as I trust myself. But the comment I wanted to make was that the biggest mistake we make in relationships is we take ownership of those we're in relationships with. We don't own them.
Exactly.
And that person each person is unique and brings something to the bouquet. And
Hmm.
so you have to allow for that. And if my mate needs to have a conversation with someone else, I trust them enough to know that they know what to do. And if they do anything that would throw them out my vortex, so be it. But it'll be their choice. We have to stop trying to own people. It really turns me when people say my man, yours or my woman.
Hmm.
Yours. Why can't we just have a relationship that is not bound by ownership? But
Yes.
Okay,
polyamory.
Osir,
I'm sorry.
we'll let you lecture more on that tomorrow. Thank you.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm coming.
We'll let you have more of that to say tomorrow.
I'm coming.
Let us finish with Dr. Tam.
No, that's good.
We're surrounded by amazing teachers. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I love it.
We are. And actually, so he triggered for me one of the points that I did want to make in regards to, health and wellness for ourselves, but knowing that that it also will enhance the relationship. We want to be our best selves so we can bring our best selves to the relationship. So
Hmm.
then to say, well, I want a relationship that is strong and this and that, but you on an individual basis have not committed to your own strength, health, wellness, balance, whatever it is that you're looking for, and that's hypocritical.
Yeah, how do you want something that you yourself are not?
Ooh.
And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Men be talking about, yeah, I want a woman that's stacked and he got the bubble belly, right? It's
Thank
like,
you.
I said, excuse me.
Don't judge me. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what they do. It is so but so I we're getting towards our 2 hour. And
Oh my goodness. Atlanta, I'm an hour ahead of y'all.
I
So
know, but I really want to see, are there any preventative measures that men can take on a daily basis? Now, we talked about detox a little bit, but what about on a daily basis? Are there preventative things that men can do?
prevention is everything.
Hmm.
And one of the things you said in the beginning, Mushamsu, I try to practice. I'm not perfect, but I
No.
try to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
And so having a spiritual practice, not getting out of bed, turning on the news, listening to who died, listen to who got shot, not turning on the TV. So having a spiritual practice where you're getting up in the morning, you're drinking water, you're having a quiet moment, you are meditating, you're praying, you're reading, you are actually feeding your mind positive information, preparing yourself for your day. That's prevention.
Mm.
Drinking water and making sure, because your body is 70-80% water, making sure that everything is flowing okay, everything is well. Checking in with your energy. How does it feel? Does it feel off balance? What do you need to give yourself today? You may
Mm.
have a routine or a ritual. And then today you may need to do something a little bit different. Your body may be saying, I'm a little low. I need a little bit more of this. Self affirmations before you go outside, because you don't know what you're going to encounter once you go outside. Stress will kill you faster than disease. So being proactive in your spiritual practices, I think, is the most fundamental thing that you can do. And just start with just making a decision not to look at your cell phone as soon as you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's not limited to men, but just thinking about what men, they watch the news. I'm thinking of, some of our relationships. They watch the news all the time. They want to watch shoot 'em up bang bang movies all the time. I'm like, it's okay to watch a love story.
No, it's not. No, I'm kidding.
It ain't gotta be shoot 'em up bang bang. But I mean, again, so it's about that balance. It's okay to go take a walk,
Mm-hmm.
to be in nature, to let the sun hit you. That's prevention. To start your day with something with nutrition. Now, when you go into an office, or if you are an essential worker and you're in the hospital, packing a lunch that has some power in it.
Mm-hmm.
Set yourself up for success.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's prevention.
Yeah.
If you are on medication right now, setting some goals in how then can you work to come off of that, especially if you have health lifestyle illnesses like diabetes and high blood pressure. Making some decisions that in the mornings you're going to get up a half hour early and take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do some sit-ups or some push-ups. This is prevention. You don't wait to have a heart attack or stroke. You don't wait until you're depressed and suicidal. You don't wait until you're angry to then try. It's just that much harder to then try to turn all of that around.
Mm-hmm.
So being aware of your inner strength and your power and what you need to feel your best for that day before you leave out that house. I think that's huge.
Yeah, that's actually great, and I'm just going to add to that.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite nutrients is diatomaceous earth,
Mm.
right?
I
DE.
just heard about that. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So diatomaceous earth is really, and so I would say do some research on it. I wish I could spell it for you, but diatamecious, diatomaceous earth is DE, and you want to get the food grade. And if you take a tablespoon of that in room temperature water, uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
8-ounce glass of water every day,
Mm-hmm.
it helps to strengthen your digestive system, but it
Mm-hmm.
also helps you at the cellular level,
Mm-hmm.
right? And do your research, find out more about that.
Absolutely.
The other thing I would say is, Tammye, lemon
Mm-hmm.
water in the morning.
Oh yeah, I
Hot
know.
lemon water.
You can
Right.
say that.
That's what, always hot lemon water in the water. And that was one of the things that I learned from Deepak Chopra 30
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Actually, a little more than 30 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it gets the alma. And what happens is when we sleep, bacteria ends up in our mouth, but it's a healthy bacteria. So when we drink the hot water in the morning, it takes that bacteria back into the digestive tract and it cleanses any ailments. It balances the flora. So it's just one of the best practices. And then the last thing is baking soda water. So you just take a half a teaspoon of baking soda, put in a cup of water, stir that, drink that once a day, and it balances your pH. You know, but that now those are not miracle things. You still have to, you know, develop high quality nutrition. Drink lots of water, and especially with DE, you have to drink a lot of water because it dries you out, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I have, for me, I love, one of the things that I love to do that curbs the appetite is adding protein powder with my superfood powder in a smoothie or a juice.
Yeah.
So I'm a big juicer. I'm big about juicing.
Yes.
Juicing is for life. But you're getting the protein that you need.
Yeah.
Because as we get older, you know, our muscles start deteriorating. So you have your protein powder.
Yeah.
And then the super green powders that have your spirulina and your chlorella and has all of your herbs needed to support the cellular function of the body, like you said, so to get to the cells and the tissue, because that's ultimately where we want the nutrition to go, because that is what's going to build our immune system, and that's going to keep us from craving and snacking. Yeah. And I don't know if men snack, but women snack, okay?
Right.
The water is the most important part because our bodies are 70-80% water. Yeah. If you're not drinking water, and then if you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night, all this is in vain.
All of it's in vain.
It's in vain. Because people drop dead of heart attacks and strokes. And they look fit. They look fit. They look great. But stress will kill you faster than disease, like I said. You're not getting enough water, and if you're not getting enough sleep, the body is not able to cleanse itself, and it's not able to heal itself, because the body heals itself when you sleep. Sam, are you still on here?
You know, the other thing that I would add to that is, you know, when you talked about the, you know, instead of turning on the news, a lot of people fall asleep to the television. I would say find some binaural beats or sleep enhancers. And I know that Tammye and I are always posting them on Facebook. You know,
I love them.
Right, we'll post some in our Ignite Your Soul Connection group. But binaural beats or something, and you can reprogram your mind. Whatever kind of binaural beat you want to have, you can actually find. But good sleep, and that helps change our circadian clock, our circadian rhythm, so that you line up with it, because the melatonin and all that, it's released between the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. So if you're not getting sleep, you know, again, those are the other reasons why you could drop dead.
Absolutely. And I said Sam's name, and Sam, please forgive me if I missed any of your comments, but Sam and I became friends because we would not sleep. Like, we would be the only ones probably on Facebook.
Wow.
So we met like, hey, so you're not sleeping either? No, I'm not sleeping either, you know. But those binaural beats are amazing. I found some other meditations that I posted that just helps to relax the brain, because men are such thinkers and they're always trying to save the world and provide and do things, and it helps you just to relax. And we didn't get into the subconscious mind and all of that, but
oh my God, it's so much, you know. You know, I'm looking at it was so many things, because we didn't get into tapping or power. It's so
so much.
The healing arts. I was like, oh, we have to go through the healing arts.
Yes.
I mean,
but I did want to keep it basic, because I did have our millennials in mind.
Yes, very cool.
Sometimes if we give them too much, it becomes overwhelming. So, but we'll have to do this again, though.
We'll do this again. And I think that some of the things we also want to do, Dr. Tammye, is maybe do some 3 to 5 minute videos.
Oh, that'd be
for the
awesome.
millennials.
That would be so good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Their
put that
attention
out to the
span.
group. Yep, I'm putting that out to the group. We might,
That's good.
yeah, and
Their attention span is only what is
come on, 3 to 5 minutes, 2 hours. They didn't turn us off a long time ago. Yeah, they got to get to the studio and whatever.
yeah, they'll have to, yeah.
So, do you have any books, titles, or anything that can leave with them, or?
Yeah. So in regards to, I'm trying to think. Daniel Hay has, I am big on, well, this is the sexuality book, and it talks about health and sexuality, and I'll put that in the group.
Oh, so is it health, sex, and longevity?
Yeah.
Daniel Reed.
Read. Thank you.
Yeah. Health, sex, and
Louise Hay.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite reference books for men.
Yeah, and I was gonna pull it out, but I think I still have that book packed down because I didn't see it. That's a big one, and I think that Daniel Reed does a good job where it's not too complex. Like Deepak Chopra is one of my favorites, but he can be, because it's more scientific.
Yeah, heady. Yeah.
Yeah, very heady, and I love it. But the average person is like, "What is he talking about?" Which is why I teach my class, because I have to break it down. But reinventing the mind, resurrecting the soul, of course, learning how to live and understanding the mind-body-spirit connection is one of my favorites. But that may be, a little bit too heady. But definitely a great book for you to become aware of how important it is for you to know that mind-body-spirit connection part.
Yeah.
So those are two of the ones that come to
mind. But to the two that I would add to that is The Multi-Orgasmic Man by Montauk Chia. Because I love Montauk Chia.
Montauk Chia.
Yes, I think we need to find him. Yeah, we need to bring him. We need to find. Yeah, because you remember years ago we had oh gosh, I can't think of his name, but he talked about multiple orgasms, and he wrote a book called The Multi-Orgasmic Couple. He's a friend of mine. Gosh, Walter Beckley.
Oh yeah. Walter, I haven't seen him lately.
Yeah, we'll have to reach out to him. Look at us. We're creating a whole thing right now. And then the last one I would say is Sacred Woman by Queen Afua.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. And Queen Afua has some amazing recipes in there. Really, and I can't think of it right now, but she really talks to women about how to support your man once he has ejaculated. Like, what nutrients can you provide for him, that will put that zinc and lecithin and all of that back into his body. It's something as simple as having pumpkin seeds or, juices, or like you're saying, smoothies with protein. But, so I would say The Multi-Orgasmic Man by Montauk Chia and Sacred Woman by Queen Afua.
And then one more, Think and Grow Rich.
Thinking
about how the great inventors, the creators, transmutation of sexual energy.
Yes.
I think that is for more reasons than one a great book for me.
Yeah. And Tammye, if you want to text me those, or either Miss Vicky those books, we'll put them in the group. Maybe we'll just find the links to them from Amazon or something.
I'm putting them in the chat right now, but we need to get the links for those.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Yeah. Sam, a high five for you normalizing your sleep.
Hey, but you too.
I'm proud of you.
You too, Dr. Tammye. You normalize yours. I see you be signing off sometime.
I'm so excited, going, and I'm not gonna stay here, but going back to what you said in regards to events happening that could look as if they're disastrous, like the whole coronavirus, COVID-19. But there have been so many miracles happening inside of. Oh my goodness.
It's
So
a
I'm like,
beautiful thing.
it.
I'm so excited too. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah, no fears.
No fears. So you know, and I'm looking because I know I could just feel Miss Vicky. Moot, we're about to come up to our time. So so I just want to say I just can't thank you enough for just being who you are.
Thank you, thank
In
you,
the
thank
world.
you.
You know, and I'm looking forward to whatever we're creating because I can already feel we're getting ready to create something.
Oh, I feel it.
You know, yeah, I do
And I'm
too.
like, we're on our 10-year anniversary too.
Yeah, we're on our, you know.
That was like yesterday.
Oh my God. And in all that time, we've still been contributing. We've contributed every year inside of Ignite Your Soul Connection and then Restored by Tammye, you know, Master Force. We've still been contributing, you know, so, and then, you know, I also want to thank you for all the people you have put through the life coach certification course, you know. And I'm going to start another one in the fall. So if you have anybody in mind, send them my way. And Kiana is also doing one in the fall. So both of us are going to be teaching. We're bringing up some more other teachers too, because I want to come out for that.
I know you've been trying to retire.
I've been trying to retire. I've retired so many times.
Stay there. Yeah, I know.
And I know this is my life work, so I'll always be doing some aspect of it. And I would love to just give that part away. You know, I think it's good to give it away too. So
exciting.
Yeah.
And Vicky, thank you. Vicky
Isn't she superb? She is
so nice to meet her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sam, for the books. Yeah, Juju Mama with Carl and Kenya Stevens. Yep.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah. Well, so Sam, we'll put those. We literally like Dr. Tammye said, we don't want to overwhelm. So there's a context inside of how we teach, you know, so that people can grow a few, and then they'll gravitate to those. They'll gravitate to those.
Yeah, next level.
Next level.
Yeah. Sam is like way up here.
Yeah.
Like way.
Yeah. And we do know that there's levels to this.
Yeah.
So a lot of how we teach is we're teaching to people who are coming in. We're always teaching to the beginners because we know that the experts are going to find us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I also want to thank our listening audience.
Thank you.
4 days. Now tomorrow night we will have all of the panel, all of the speakers back. We're going to do a full panel inside of a conversation called Powerful Relationships. Yes, and we're adding Dr. Marlene Fain and Kiana Thompson. So we're going to have a balance of male and female energy, and we're going to have the young all the way up to the elders. So we're committed to having people inside of a conversation that they can create the relationship that they desire.
Woo! I'm beyond that.
Yes, you know, so get your books, get your ideas, get your statistics, get your whatever. You know, so I love you so much, Tammye.
I love you too, Mushisu. Thank you. Mwah. Thank you.
All right. Anything else for us, Miss Vicky?
No, you said it all. And we'll see everybody back tomorrow for our recap and closeout of what a wonderful week this has been. And I'm so grateful that everyone could stop through. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much, Tammye. This was a great conversation today. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you, Vicky.
All right.
Okay, hold on, Tammye.
Okay.